No, no,
Yeah.
I didn't.
No, me neither. I feel like you only need to go to one cop.
Yeah.
You know, the experience of going to the cop is all the humdrum. Ooh, ooh, ooh! It's like hype is happening, and then you get there, and it's just the most disappointing fucking thing ever. And you have to kind of go through that disappointment.
Yeah, I think so. And I think like back before Madrid, I was still like somewhat having a little bit of hope still in that process and being
Yeah.
able to affect that. But now I just see it for basically the sham that it is. So I didn't really also feel like there was any point of going there almost.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like you're giving it validation for
Yeah.
something which it's not by going there.
Yeah, by putting your energy into going to Glasgow, you're kind of like, yeah, you're validating something that you already know. And others will argue, no, it's like, well, but it's almost the same debate as whether or not you should vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, like don't vote, you validate the process, you know. But it's like, yeah, but I mean, the process is the process. So people will argue for the process, and they sometimes have good arguments to argue for the process. I'm not gonna knock the process as such. Like,
No.
I'm sure that the people who feel like they need to be involved in the process for the right reasons do so because they really do feel like they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And they might even be doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
But it's not my path anymore.
I think the biggest thing for me going to Madrid a couple of years ago was more meeting activists from all around the world.
Yeah.
And that was the inspiring part. And
Yes.
making those connections.
Like we met there.
Yeah. So.
Well, we met on the bus on the way.
Yeah.
Super great.
Really good.
Yeah, we took a Flixbus. Oh my god. I took Flixbus from Amsterdam to Madrid.
Yeah.
Like you did from Malmö or something, right?
No, I was already out. So I came down to COP. I was at the Ende Gelände had an action before that.
Ende Gelände was right there, yeah.
Yeah. So I was in Germany, and
I still should go to Ende Gelände once. That feels like
Yeah.
that's a gotta do thing.
That's also a crazy experience, if not anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the 26 hours bus ride, that is a thing. Well, you know all about it. Yeah. So next COP is in Egypt.
Yeah, Sharm el Sheikh, I think.
That does sound like fun.
Does sound like a lot of oppression.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I love Egypt. And it is in December, you know. It's gonna be there's gonna be worse places to be in December than Egypt. I mean, my eyes were opened going to Madrid in December already. I didn't realize that was a thing. I had always been here in Holland in December.
Yeah.
Or in like Germany. But just to have those extra 45 minutes to an hour of daylight.
Yeah, makes such a difference.
Oh, wow. Right?
Yeah, winter depression is a real thing.
It really is a real thing. Yeah. And last year it hit the hardest I ever had it. Like, it's last year, because of the lockdowns, it started like halfway October.
Yeah.
And usually it doesn't hit till after Christmas. You know, for me, the hardest months were January, February, and honestly the first like 2-3 weeks of March as well. Yeah. Like the real depth of it is New Year's till Valentine's. Like those 6 weeks are the hardest, and then the next 6 weeks are still hard. And life kind of resumes around Easter.
Yeah,
So
then the resurrection comes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really, that's how long it takes.
Yeah, I've never really experienced winter depression that bad before, but last year was pretty rough with like the world situation in general, and then the pandemic and everything going on.
Yeah.
Pretty rough.
Especially the contrast of the year before. Because the year before it was like going to Madrid and making, and just how life just ground to a halt. How fragile our system is.
But I think it's also grinding to that halt, like to some extent, also has been an eye-opener, I think, for a lot of people that have previously not questioned how society is functioning.
Yeah.
And with that stopping of society based on this virus, then it's almost like it shows that it is possible with that change and with drastic actions if there is enough incentive for it.
Yeah, thank you for articulating that. That's reminding me indeed of. That was the silver lining of the whole thing. In fact, the first couple of weeks, that wasn't even a silver lining. It was pure gold. You know, just to witness people's eyes open to the system as such, that it's something that you know, before you would have to explain. What do you mean when you talk about the system a lot? What do you mean by the system? It's like, well, everything that stopped working because of COVID or something. That's like the system is the way everything is interoperating. And then you can tell that as measures are being taken or as measures are being debated, you can tell that there's this, that every time you make a decision, you have incentives, or you have what do you call this? Like stakes. There's stakes. There's people who are benefiting or people who are suffering, and it's always going one way or the other. And you can tell that the priorities of the system are not its people, but the system itself. The operability, the profitability, and the continuation of the system itself is the priority of the system.
Which inevitably it's gonna be its downfall in some way or another.
Yeah, but the problem is, some way or another.
Yeah.
Like, is the system? Is it
How
gonna
is
be
this
its
gonna
downfall?
unfold?
Yeah, is it gonna take all of us with it, or is it gonna be like, oh well, we recognize the system isn't working, and if we try and keep it up, it'll cost a lot of people their life, and we should just let it go, or they're gonna be like, no, as long as we have power, we're gonna keep sacrificing people to the system.
Which is unfortunately what's happening.
Yeah, that's the trajectory we're on. Yeah, you see that with COVID as well. I saw this morning. So here in Holland, the way that we have approached it is like, oh well, we'll keep society kind of like, we'll keep everything running. All the profitable shit will keep running for as much hospital and intensive care capacity that we have.
Yeah.
So that's how we were operating, and rather than just trying not to get people sick.
Yeah.
You know,
it's more like how much suffering can we
mitigate
and keep going with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and now we've run into a new bottleneck. The crematoria don't have any more space in their freezer.
It's so
there's
no end to it.
We've run out of burial and crematory.
Like when you thought that
capacity.
This dystopian movie couldn't get any worse, then it's just one thing after another.
Well, the thing that you expect with dystopian movies is that you would expect that you would need a set. you don't expect that you could simply run a dystopian movie as a collective real-time experience with the society that you've already got in place. You know, you imagine like, oh, we need some kind of like a hectic black and red backdrop for our press conferences. No, the ones we have will do fine. You know?
Keep it rolling.
Yeah, we need some kind of new high-tech police outfit or something to make it more like obvious that the ones we have will do.
Oh,
yeah. It's it wouldn't take much to have a documentary that could also be a dystopian sci-fi movie or something. I mean, maybe. I sound like a cliche now. I'm cringing at myself, which is fine. Embrace it.
But it is like watching dystopian movies and series. It's almost like, well, it's getting to a point where like the real life experience is starting to catch up to it, or the dystopian like fictions are starting to turn more and more real. Like it doesn't seem that the distance is that far anymore. At least
it
my
doesn't
experience.
Seem. No, like the word "seem" itself is like the edge between two planes. It's like it's seamless. It's a gradual thing. It's a gradient. Yeah. It's like it's not whether or not this is dystopian. It's how dystopian. And then people will be like, oh, I like to use this metaphor, but some people will say, oh, you can't compare this to dystopia. This is still we're still living in paradise, because the Netherlands in particular is still like the comfiest place to be in the world, and you shouldn't try to downplay how bad other people have it by comparing this to a dystopia. It's just not you're being disingenuous by taking that point of view.
But that's a pretty privileged point of view as well, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, we're doing good because people are still like suffering worse in other parts of the world. But then you're disconnecting from that suffering too, and not really like, oh, as long as we're fine, then that's good.
For me, that's exactly the dystopian part about it. Yeah, it's how incredibly comfortable this pandemonium collapse of everything has been for me personally. On the one hand, I feel like I'm still the beneficiary of its inconsistency and its unfairness, while at the same time feeling like a victim, feeling relatively powerless to do anything about it. And that creates a tension from which it's much easier to disconnect and say, you know what? No, everything like, oh, this is just
too much.
Yeah, and then indeed you could go into like the faux realism of saying, no, this is not dystopian. Actually, this is we're just doing our best, and this is just the system works, even if it's not perfect. It works because it could be worse. And it's like, because we still have democracy, and you still have your freedoms, and people say like, oh, our prime minister, at least it's not Viktor Orban or Bolsonaro,
Yeah.
But
it could be worse.
Like if you're Mimimju, right? Who we met in Madrid, who is from the Amazon. Is there really a difference? Is there really such a clear difference between Rutte and Mark Rutte, our prime minister, or Bolsonaro? It's like, it's from that perspective, Bolsonaro wouldn't even be Bolsonaro without Dutch multinationals and without the Netherlands basically funding this country is where the money is coming from to destroy the Amazon. Yeah, because we're the greatest importer of soy and exporter of dairy, meat, animals.
And it's just like, it is a sliding scale of like how bad it is, but just because another country or something else that you're comparing with is much worse, doesn't mean that your situation is good. It's just less horrible. Like, for example, living up to...
Well, living here is less horrible.
Yeah.
But it is definitely contributing to making other places more horrible. Right?
Yeah.
Like, we're depending on resources, the extraction of which is really making people's lives worse.
Yeah.
You know?
It's horrible, and it's like, I think I saw one article mentioning that, like, coming into COP26, that Gambia was the only country in the world living up to its pledges in the Paris Agreement. And that's just like,
sounds about right.
It's the solution is not coming from top down. It's going to come from down up, if anything. But
but we have, and probably because even like the most well-meaning, like climate injustice aware white middle class people from here, e.g. us, literally don't have the capacity to come up with the answer.
No.
Because we're, and I'm not trying to flagellate myself, but we're not yet part of the solution.
No.
But then again, it's unfair to say that we're part of the problem by pointing at our consumption patterns or whatever, because that is where it's going. Like, and you see this parallel also with COVID, right? People are being held individually accountable. It's your iPhone. Oh, it's your trip that is causing global warming, or that's causing mine collapses to kill kids in the Congo. You know,
I think that was one of the most brilliant inventions of the fossil fuel lobbyists, to invent the individual carbon footprint calculators.
Yeah.
To have people focusing on their individual consumption instead of focusing on the bigger picture.
Yeah. Yeah, and the same with the corona situation, because in Holland, so right now we're constantly getting these messages from the government saying, oh, people need to behave better, people need to stick to the measures better because the hospitals are being overrun, the people working at hospitals are overworked, and regular care is being limited and stopped, and people can't have their operations or their treatments because the hospitals are overflowing with corona patients. And it's up to us as individuals to stick to the measures better so that we don't have to have more severe measures in place. But let's forget that we privatized our healthcare system under the same parties that are currently in power. That in 2018, multiple hospitals went bankrupt because they were in too poor areas. So they weren't going to be growing. There was no business case for them to pay back the necessary investments, because there was no growth curve, because the people living in the areas that those hospitals serviced were downwardly mobile in economic terms, and they were avoiding care to avoid the eigen risico, or the own risk, or the co-payments, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, people were avoiding care because it was too expensive, because we privatized our healthcare system. And that it lost us like a third of our IC capacity, and also a lot of regular care that was on a high quality. It was good. It would have. There's currently people dead who didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Because the insurer insurance companies didn't see enough growth potential in these hospitals to keep them alive. And meanwhile, the insurers collectively have many, many of our billions of euros on their balance sheets. But our society is really crumbling. Like the cohesion in our society is tearing up because the measures, because people feel the injustice. They don't necessarily know how to articulate the injustice or know how to pinpoint the cause of the injustice, but they are rioting in the streets. The cops have shot people rioting over measures that people are getting individually blamed for.
And it's working. Like, it's a lot of I feel and I see a lot of divide and conquer strategy being put out with like dividing people into vaccinated and non-vax, and then like
gonna
having
get the
people
booster, not gonna get the booster. I remember when it first came, like even in April of 2020, I was talking with a friend about like, oh, and I guess they're gonna do the vaccinations, of course, it's gonna be all about that. And then I was like, well, when the vaccination comes, I'm not gonna say no, but I'm gonna say, you can vaccinate me after everybody in the global south has been vaccinated. You can vaccinate me when 2/3 of people in Africa have been vaccinated. Yeah. By then, I will also, I'm more than happy to do social distancing and whatever is needed to wait. Right?
Yeah.
Currently, vaccination in Holland is 87%.
Yeah.
And we're talking about boosters. And most of Africa, single-digit percent.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's patents on the vaccines. And in one case, it's the most egregious, is the AstraZeneca vaccine, which was called the Oxford vaccine before Bill Gates stepped in and used this $100 million donation to Oxford University to persuade them to not give out the patent freely, but instead have his, or the company that he's invested in, AstraZeneca, come in and become the distributor. Yeah. And then there was not enough capacity in these private pharmaceutical industry companies to create vaccines for the entire Earth population. You know who had that capacity? India. So India and South America, or South Africa, and a few other countries brought a resolution to the World Trade Organization that was voted on in December of 2020. And it was a proposal to not do patents for corona vaccines. And there's a picture of the map of how the votes are distributed in that. Basically, the people who voted against that resolution was North America, Europe, Australia. And then the people who voted for the resolution was South America, Africa, and
as you would expect.
Asia, as you would expect, exactly. And the resolution was not passed because India would have the capacity to create these vaccines. Yeah. Would have had the capacity to create these vaccines in time. Before the Delta variant and now the fucking murder variant would have time to evolve. Because the most profitable scenario for big pharma is endless mutations, endless new vaccines. People will pay any price for them. Governments will simply make contracts to vaccinate their entire population if they can afford it, and they will always, because they have a duty to protect their people, they will always keep paying for this. So the incentives for big pharma is more mutations. Do not wipe out the virus. right? They don't want it. They don't want to stop the virus.
No.
It's the best money maker they've ever had.
Not only moneymaker, but also like a control measure of the people. Like,
Yeah.
we were talking about that.
But then we're talking
before
about
we
the
started.
system again,
Yeah.
rather than the, right now specifically, it's just the economic side for these companies.
Yeah.
Is what is their incentive? What's their best case scenario? It's not eradication of the virus and then
No.
people celebrating that
It's
they, good job.
economic growth, like any other sector, economic sector.
And what other sectors have growth potential anymore?
No.
Because you can't keep emitting stuff. There's no people don't have the purchasing power to keep buying, replacing all their furniture or whatever.
Mm.
So, yeah. Healthcare is the biggest industry in the United States. I think I read somewhere that it was like 40% of their entire economy.
That's about right. I don't know the exact numbers, but somewhere around that
Yeah,
ballpark.
which makes sense because you can have ridiculous margins on stuff that's relatively, even like footprint-wise, it's relatively small. I mean, although I hear there's lots of toxification involved, and there's lots of waste products and shit happening in order to create medicine as well. But yeah, no. So it's fair to say that we're in a dystopia-like situation. Yeah, that's not an exaggeration.
No.
Or maybe it is an exaggeration, but it's an exaggeration that is helpful to actually look at where we are.
Yeah. And I think that's the sad reality too, is that it probably needs to be dystopian and it needs to get worse in order for enough people to wake up and potentially create a real change. Because if there isn't enough suffering and it isn't enough bad things going on around the world, then what's the incentive for people to wake up and start doing something about the situation?
Well, I would very much like for it to not have to go as far as that. I would like, maybe that's why I want to make a podcast. It's like, hey, it's bad enough, people. This is
We don't need to fuck it up more than it is already.
It's bad enough for us to want and need and build change. Yeah. And then again, there's also the decolonize your mind aspect. We're not gonna we don't have to come up with what is the solution, because people are already pushing for solutions. They're pushing from the bottom up, like you said. People are coming from let's go to Gambia and ask them, what are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing right? Yeah. They say, well, for one, we don't actually have the industry to cause any of this. But how do people live? Oh, well, if you need something, you borrow it from your neighbor. Huh? Fancy that. Anyway, something like that. I don't know, something naively utopian like that.
Yeah. But tomorrow is Black Friday, so we can just
Tomorrow's
go and
Black
shop.
Friday.
Just go shop.
New iPhone.
Yes.
Man, that's one thing that's happening. I'm craving a new iPhone. I've never had an iPhone, but I feel like it's time. Yeah. Yeah. And I refuse to feel guilty about it.
It's my human right. I have the right to have an iPhone.
Maybe. Well, I mean,
it's my human right to fly. It's my human right to eat meat.
Well, maybe. What if maybe? What if at least maybe?
Yeah.
You could see the charts. It's like sure, my personal footprint. Of course I did the fucking CO2 calculator, even if it's ridiculous, and I got to 1.3 Earth or something. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I live fucking Spartan-y. I don't even I don't know what I could do except impinge on myself. No. I'm doing well. What the CO2 calculator showed me is that what we need is systems change.
Yeah.
is that what we need.
As long as we live in the
Yeah,
system.
if you want to get this, if you want to get my footprint down, then I shouldn't have my own refrigerator. But if I don't have my own refrigerator, I shouldn't need my own refrigerator.
No.
It's horribly inefficient for me to have my own fully equipped kitchen. That's ludicrous.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually enjoy cooking for myself. And I don't think anybody does.
No,
so why do we all have kitchens?
It's horrible.
Why do it's horrible. Exactly. That's another thing. I was talking about we live in a dystopia back in 2017. You know, it was already dystopian then. You know,
but it's gotten worse since.
I find the fact that I have a get a load of this guy. He thinks the fact that he has a fridge makes life dystopian. I'm like, yes, it's horrible. It's alienating. I don't want to have single portion ready meals wrapped in plastic because I don't have time or incentive to cook because I'm too alienated from what it means to be a human being to enjoy nourishing this body.
Yeah, it is alienating, and it's not good for the planet, obviously, because we're living over our limit.
Yeah,
but it's also it's not good for us. We don't feel good living that way. And I spent a large portion of this year living in a spiritual community in Denmark, and it's so nice having that environment and being around people where there's an open-minded culture and there's this collective care among people. But also, I came to think of it when you talked about the ridiculousness of having your own fridge, because there we were a couple of dozen of people living together, and we cooked shared meals. And it's also you don't need to cook for yourself. You cook for other people too, and you take turns, and it's much more enjoyable to cook for someone else than to just cook for yourself. And it's also way more sustainable to have that shared resources instead of having each of all those persons having their own fridge. Ridiculous. You just share one fridge and then and it's also the amount of time it frees up for you to do other stuff too.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
because you share in that process of cleaning the place, taking care of it, doing the gardening, doing the meals, all the stuff that in the system that we live in, with 40-hour work week being the golden standard. Ridiculous. That whole system was built upon back in the days when men used to go to work and women used to work in the household. Yeah. So that whole system is built upon you working 40 hours a week, but then coming back home.
And now you're either living alone or you're living with a partner who is also working.
Also doing the same thing.
And the household chores are taken up by fucking takeaway.com.
Yeah.
And you have the most disenfranchised people driving on these electric rent-a-scooters, delivering your plastic wrapped, phthalate infested fast food.
Yeah. And who's gonna then be able to push for that change? Because the people that are for example, a couple that are both working 40-hour work weeks and then being exhausted, they're not gonna push for systemic change in society, really. And the people that are oppressed in that system and doing the food deliveries and stuff.
No, but those are also the people don't even realize that they're being oppressed in the system. They're you're so comfortable, but it's not you're really, if you really sit still and you ask yourself, it's no, you want this to be over, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's I want the lockdown to be over because I want to
go back to normal.
Yeah, hang out with my family or whatever. It's yeah, exactly. It's the need for community and connection and it's the togetherness that we're missing.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier in the before we were recording, that if you're rich, people get to the point where they've gotten rich and it's shit, but I'm still miserable. And then you get a change of priorities.
So then it's like, oh, like what's being pushed in the society is like a lot of the narrative is like get rich and it will solve your problems, but like the people that make it to that point, they realize, oh, I'm rich now, but I haven't solved my problems. There's something else that's wrong.
Yeah. And you know what I find, probably one of the reasons I don't really meditate or do all this yoga stuff is kind of like, I don't actually want to asceticize, and I don't actually want to like, vibe my way out of feeling miserable about reality. Because while I know that that's possible, I'm in a ridiculously privileged position that makes that possible. Yeah. And it would disconnect me too much from the very real suffering of the world, in a way. I feel like it's already an escape afforded to me, and that it's serving the system if I do that. The whole mindfulness as a productivity booster thing that is going on.
Yeah, it's very. It's like I'm constantly struggling with that too.
Vegan
like
yoga dystopia.
Having like very much focused on my well-being like this year, and I find it's very hard to strike that balance between like being self-centered and like ecocentric, like, because of course you need to take care of yourself to the point that you're like functioning to the best of your abilities in order to be of any help to other people, but you can't really like get into that like self-absorbed state, which is quite easy to get into if you are focusing too much on your own well-being.
Yeah, everything goes together, because if you're not embedded in community, you're never going to reach that point of well-being. You're always going to feel that you're not there yet. You're always going to, but we don't even recognize it anymore because we don't have especially here in the Netherlands, I feel like our culture doesn't really understand community anymore. We've forgotten what that means. So we don't even know how to articulate what it is that we're missing. And that's why the whole take care of yourself before you can take care of others narrative just falls flat, because you're not taking care of yourself in order to take care of other people. And you can't take care of yourself, really fulfill your needs, because you lack the possibility of being aware of what those needs are. Because you don't understand what it would feel like to have community. I feel like that's where I'm at right now. Like, I know that what I'm missing is something I can't put to words, and it'll be this endless attempt at getting to the point where I feel well enough to be there for others or something. When I learned already by being in situations where I had to take care of other people, like, those actually helped me grow as a person much more. So yeah, I feel like there's lots of toxic narratives going on, especially in this whole like mindfulness community about, you have to work on yourself before you can work on others. Well, that's great, and it's
like, one doesn't need to exclude the other. That's like a lot of time when you're talking about, for example, like individual lifestyle changes and pushing for systemic changes too. Like, you can do both at the same time. It's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I just feel ready to like transcend my current limited understanding of the situation, because I'm getting bored of hearing myself repeat the same talking points as well. Maybe that's also why one of the reasons I haven't been motivated to do this podcast is because it hasn't actually made me feel good. Because it's like,
keep on repeating the same patterns for
yeah, and like digging up like the dysfunctionality of society, and then my own, like getting really like face to face with the sense of just alienation that I feel living in the pod. Like I recognized that when we were doing the lockdown and everybody was just living in their apartments, I was like, hey, nothing much changed for me. I was already doing this.
Mm.
And I realized, fuck, I was already doing this.
Mm.
It's not like the patterns emerging now weren't already happening.
Mm.
Like the idea that people would just order everything to be delivered to their house. That was already going on.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh, I feel excluded because I don't have a QR code to go to the theater. I'm like, bitch, so many people were excluded from the theater because they didn't have the fucking money to go to the theater, or didn't have the time to go to the theater.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, no, well, great that you feel excluded now, but don't pretend like that's somehow new.
No.
You know, maybe that does tie in with the take care of others as well thing. It's like, hey, you know, I'm glad that you're aware of how your own freedom and your own participation in society is being limited because you're not part of the new dominant narrative of people who are getting vaccinated and people who are, you know, basically bowing their head to this authoritarian dragon structure being built up in the absence of a true democratic government.
Mm.
And you know, I'm saying that without actually having a medical or scientific opinion really about any of this. I don't know anything. I'm not a virologist. I'm not a fucking immunologist. But I have always been an activist.
Mm.
Because I've always kind of felt excluded from society.
Yeah.
You know, so I know what I can tell. Like I know what it feels like for people to feel excluded from society. So I empathize with them, and I feel like, yeah, well, there's many aspects to this situation, and one of them is that you're right that we're not living in a democracy anymore. You know, we might have different opinions on when that started. You know, but we're arriving at the same conclusion.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to talk with people about this. Not sure where that had to go, but I wanted to say it. It's like, yeah, I'm glad that people are opening their eyes to that we're living in a dystopia and we need a revolution.
Yes.
But like peaceful revolution, because you can only create the world that you are, right?
Yeah.
Be the change that you... That's the one thing. Be the change you want to see in the world. And you know why? Because that's the only change you're ever going to be in the world.
Yeah.
Is who you already are. The values that you're already espousing and that you're already channeling out, that you're already working with.
Everything else is just an illusion. Anyway.
Yeah. See, and that's the whole mindfulness, you know, inside so is outside, law of attraction. That's all connected to this. And it has a real value in a sense that you need to be aware that who you are, how you do your life translates to the experience you're having and translates to the experience that other people are having around you. So it is very important to have, like you say, a community where you have a common experience of your values. And yeah, you should work on yourself. And yeah, the best thing you can do for others is to work on yourself. All those things are true in some sense. It's just that they're being marketed and sloganized into more reasons why you shouldn't confront the system.
Yeah, it's being marketed as like, oh, do your yoga and meditation in order to be more productive so you can contribute more to the economic growth.
So learn to manage the stress, right? But you don't realize that the stress literally is the pressure of being the human buffer that is being used up to accommodate the paradoxes and internal inconsistencies of the system, that as it breaks down is offloading the pressure that its own structure isn't carrying anymore onto the people that don't have the resources or the community structure or the community strength to oppose themselves being victimized and sacrificed in order to prop up a system that was never serving them anyway. And now they're realizing, oh fuck, this system is oppressing me. And, so they come in, they're going to protest and they're saying, fuck it, I'm not getting my vax or whatever. And I empathize and love them because I know that feeling. I just wish that there was, I want to offer them another story than isolationist, right-wing nonsense, basically. Because that whole aspect of the political sphere of people who are like, who didn't, I mean, in a way, people have already been cast aside by the system a long time ago, but kind of it was always bearable because the system was still functioning and they were still useful to it. But now they're simultaneously useless and the system isn't working, and it's now, the kind of oppression and struggle that people, exactly the kind of frustration and struggle and oppression people weren't experiencing before, that led them to say, oh, you can't call the society we're living in dystopian because others have it so much worse, and this is still such a great country to live in, and you're still so lucky, and you should recognize your privilege, and you should just, do your best to make the system a little bit better where you can, but don't try to change something that is basically still working, and it would just create chaos to upset it. Well, the system has been upset, and it's creating chaos, and it's creating all the suffering that was already like laying in wait, and that was already being caused everywhere else in the world.
Yeah, and it's basically like by saying that and trying to work within this system and work with it the best you can, you're basically saying then that the oppression of other parts of the world is okay because we're better off here, because our system is based on
it's hard
exploiting other parts of the world.
But it's very hard to admit that to yourself and publicly. To say like, well, I don't really know what to do about people suffering, so I'm gonna indeed again, like, sort of spiritual bypass that and just use it as a reason why I should be so grateful, and I should count my blessings, and I should, again, like, mindfulness sidestep this sense of dread and unfairness and injustice and pain, and because you kind of are empathizing with them anyway, as you're always, it's not like you're completely unaware. And it's easy to, people are always able to see that, of course, even saying other places have it worse is a way to have empathy.
Yeah.
It's,
at least you're recognizing that and not just going on with your everyday life, not looking at that fact.
But now it's really over. Like, the game is really up. And the slice of people who are saying, who are still having faith in the system is thinning every day. People who you would never have expected it from are openly stepping aside from the system and just not believing it anymore, and revoking their faith in the government or in the hierarchical structure as such. And more and more people are going to like radical right-wing parties as well, not despite of them seeming to attack our democracy, but because. And I would be more worried about that if I still felt like there was some democracy to lose in that process. But I see through it in a way. I'm like, nah, this
it's already too far gone.
It's already like, what would really change if the fucking right wing really got power?
Yeah.
It would simply accelerate a process that's happening anyway with our system, and the system needs to go.
Yeah.
But then again, like I said, I believe that in 2017, I probably believed in 2012 when the financial crash in 2008 wasn't responded to by removing the financial system as it is and just starting over. You know, we need jubilees, we need debt forgiveness, we need to start over, make new currency. Basically, we need to make a new currency every 7 years, just like they said it in the Bible. You know, wipe out all the debts, because that would also mean you wipe out most possessions, right? And then you start over. You have this in many functioning societies where
there's this element of renewal.
Yeah, or like Christmas would be when the richest person in the village invites everybody to just come and take stuff. You know, that's in a way that's kind of the point. You need to be constantly redistributing all the hoarded shit, because right now we don't. We enforce hordes with bigger and bigger police forces and bigger armies, driving up the stakes. You know, there wouldn't be war if war wasn't profitable.
No.
Maybe we should find a way to make war not profitable. I have one strategy for that in Europe. It will be if everybody leaves the cities and starts spreading themselves. Like if everybody just starts squatting the land. And yeah, that means disowning the fucking farmers, but not the way that our government is going to do it in the name of green grabbing and buying out all the already rich dairy farmers in order to sell the land to the bourgeois and then have them receive endless subsidies so they can become CO2 farmers or whatever. But leave the city. Live in communities everywhere, have decentralized networks of distribution, basically traveling groups of traveling salesmen or bands or, literally the traveling circus. That's the point of the traveling circus, It's just to have like a trade route, basically. You can have decentralized, you could even use the blockchain for this. People put in where they're going to be traveling, when they're going to travel there, and then people have their packages or whatever they need to ship to someone else, and you just plop it in, and the network will find an optimal route for it, and everybody gets paid, and everybody gets there. Like there's fun. This could be so much fun. Like the future could be so much fun.
Yeah.
But it'll take people to see this vision and decide to go for it, because otherwise, what we're gonna have is just more dispossessions, more like you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Great reset. Everybody living in the pod, and getting their the worst, like what you see now, but like we're already that's the thing. Like, how can you say we're not living in dystopia when all the dystopian futures that you could imagine are simply like only slightly worse version or slightly exaggerated versions of what we're already doing.
Or moving in that direction.
Yeah, I'm calling it a dystopia because I want people to look at the trajectory of the development of our society. And it's going to be a fucking nightmare. And if it's going to be a nightmare, then maybe it already, to some extent, is a nightmare. Can I say that out loud? And more people are saying, yes, you can say that out loud. So that's given me, well, not exactly hope, but...
And I think that's also like what we need to communicate to, and what we need to live by is, unless we start recognizing these patterns now and make a change in direction now, that's where we're heading. But if we make that shift in our mindset already and start heading towards a different future, then we might actually stand a shot at changing it. While if we're just following that like herd mentality, that's leading us towards total disaster.
Yeah, and that does bring us back to the mindfulness and create the reality that you want to live in and be the change you want to see element, but in a fruitful way. Like, yeah, go do it. Go use the privilege that you have to leave the comfort zone and Go explore the possibilities. Go experiment with the other forms and report back and say, hey, this is a fruitful direction. We tried this other thing, it doesn't work. You know, or if you want to have a homesteading group or whatever, if you want to do like the whole eco village distributed economy thing, then you need to be aware of such and such, or you're still gonna run into people recreating the same authoritarian structures that we are trying to escape because they haven't actually, because it turns out you need the step of decolonizing your mind. Yeah. You need to get, you know, you can take the person out of the war, but can you take the war out of the person? You can take yourself out of the matrix, but you need to get the matrix out of yourself. You know, so that's why you need your regular blue pills, or you know, psilocybin. Yeah, something like that. Actually, psilocybin is the best for this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just make blanket statements like everybody should take mushrooms, but more people should be taking mushrooms than currently are. Yeah. I can tell that for sure. And if you're really alienated and you feel like shit, like, wow, there's way better. Like, mushrooms still, to me, seem like they make more sense than antidepressants or other kind of treatments that are available right now. And nature. Nature's so good. We need to be in nature. We need to have connection with nature.
Yeah, of course.
That is like your rhythm, your, you know, touch grass. That was I don't know if you're I'm a terminally online person, or at least it got a lot worse over lockdowns and everything. But touch grass is a big, you know, was a bit of a thing for a month or two.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been basically, like, when I'm not in cities, I'm trying to walk around barefoot as much as I can. Just connect.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. Like, really, bodies don't work in apartments.
No.
That's if you feel like your body is somehow wrong, get in nature. Take mushrooms in nature before you like, think there's something wrong with you, because you just haven't felt right yet.
Yeah, like, my first psychedelic experience was basically the last thing that pushed me into going into activism, because that made that, like, illusion of separation, like, glitch a little bit for me, enough so that I don't feel as alienated as I did before, and I'm able to open up to the potential that there's something bigger to us than our own individual survival and our own individual well-being, and there is something bigger for us to care about and to do something about. And, like, regularly opening up to that dimension through, like, psychedelics or meditation or whatever means of method you use, I think for me that's an important reconnection in order to care and be the best version of yourself, and not be so stuck in the old conditioning from the society. It's basically like, that's the main thing, and why I try to keep my meditation practice regular, is I see it as a deconditioning of this sick society, and it enables me to see things from a different point of view.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's like meditation makes sense after mushrooms somehow, because it reconnects me with a sense of understanding. It's not even something that could be described. just that everything is connected, and that I'm right in the middle of it, and it's not something I have to chase. It's not something that's getting away from me. It's not. It's all the things that I'm worried about it being. It's not. It's not even. It's not even a dystopia. It's not even a. It's not even any of the things I could think about it. I am in the middle of it. In that sense, like the CO2 footprint calculator works so well because it's not completely wrong. It's not that you're not personally responsible, but you're not personally responsible for the fallout of a dysfunctioning system that you happen to be a part of. You're personally responsible for your role in bringing about the world. You are personally creating your slice, your facet of the world. We all have a facet of the world to take care of. Like it says in the Bible, right? We all have everybody's responsible for their piece of land. Like you never. So become. And together that makes up the world. And in that sense, we're all together. We're all united. We're all one. But we're all unique, and we're all individuals. Yeah. It's and.
We all have our role to play.
Oh, but you were communist. You want us all to be the same and wear the same bloody uniform. Like, do I look like someone who would wear the same uniform as anybody else? Do you think that's what... Like, no, I don't mean sameness or enforced similarity or anything like that. No, I mean, I want to celebrate your uniqueness as it is, as something that is connected to the world I am also connected with in every part of my being. I give everything I have into the world, into creating the world. And you you shape the world by giving everything you have. And if you feel isolated, alienated, and depressed, you're going to try and turn yourself away from the world. But there's nothing else to turn to. There's only the void. And in order to cope with the fact that part of you is turned towards the void, you're going to try and fill up that, or you're going to try and mirror your relationship with void by living your life partially in avoidance. So you get addicted to tobacco and sugar and violence and television and fucking masturbation and mistreating each other and like just all the stuff that might feel good in the moment but long term isn't building your well-being and therefore your ability to mesh holistically and productively and regeneratively with other people. And you're going to find that the people that you resonate with are also avoiding, are also addicted, are also messing up their lives. Maybe worse than you. And maybe mirroring them, you kind of get worse in order to fit in better with this little cluster that is trying to separate itself from oneness. But you can't do that. If you do that, you break. I almost wonder what's worse. It's like, in a way, it's good that people who are alienated and trying to like split themselves off from society end up breaking. Because if they would manage, it would be worse. If I'm glad that isolation or separation is an illusion. Because if it wasn't, we would have bigger problems to deal with. Yeah. But the problems we have to deal with are already pretty bad. Because people have 1 foot in our shared reality and 1 foot in the fucking pseudo, the hellscape that they're creating for themselves together in order to deal with the fact that they have, that they have turned towards the void together. And it's just, and because they have their other foot in reality, it sort of, this toxic stuff building up there is flowing back into society and kind of warping it in a way that it becomes harder to recognize yourself in others. And everybody's kind of sent off on their own little spiral, and that's why everybody thinks everybody else is living in a conspiracy theory, or everybody thinks everybody else is deluded, and that's, people are getting more and more assertive and violent about their point of view and about the worldview that they have. Even in the middle, people are like, ooh, we're being so reasonable because we believe in the system, and it's so hard, it's so sad to see all these people losing faith in the system. It's like, well, they're not. People are just like, I'm just watching this thing like drifting apart into like these different fractal spirals. Everybody's trying to find a way out, but that doesn't work because it's all one big fractal, and you're just exploring things, but it's hard to find each other again. You're kind of lost in the long tail of reality, and it gets narrower and narrower. So you're kind of like your groupthink gets more pointed, and you get more. It gets brittle, and these groups splinter over little differences, over little discrepancies in their thinking. That's why you see all this leftist infighting and rightist infighting. All this, like, the further away you get from the middle in politics, the harder it is to have your group not break up.
Yeah. Which
is why the middle is such a strong political force, because their groups maintain some cohesion, because there's more bandwidth. They literally have a bigger slice of the pie, because you can. There's more tolerance for shifts in thinking. Yeah. Like in these, just like big social democrat parties, they have all kinds of people there. Which is probably why politics is such a weird, stagnant, slow, such a problem. But even now in Holland, we have just the big centrist parties trying to I spent like 9 months trying to come up with a government together. And it's literally the same parties that just came out of government.
Yeah.
But they had to disband their government because they had literally just victimized so many marginalized people that people got angry about it, and and they still haven't compensated these people, and they still haven't done anything to fix it, and they're just going to reform with the same parties, and that's also causing people to just lose faith in the system and split off from that mainstream, from the main branch in a way, and get sucked into these spirals that have been created. That, while I think that it makes sense, like, of course you would have those, of course you would witness that, but it doesn't mean that the solution is to be found in going down any of these rabbit holes, be it the right wing or the left wing, or even in a way like if we all just leave and go live on sustainable eco villages, even that is just a rabbit hole away from what we're really dealing with. Is we're all in this together, and together we're gonna have to, first of all, be with what's really there. Stop avoiding, stop turning away from the reality that we share. And build the character, learn the strength that you need to face that, to fully face it. That's the facet of the big thing.
Yeah.
You are responsible for your facet of the whole big thing. Don't try to split off.
No.
Don't try to avoid. There's no turning away from it.
No. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we're facing. Like, if you're looking at I can only speak on the point of view of like the climate movement in Sweden. I feel like a lot of people are living in denial of how the reality is, like how bad the situation actually is. And in order to change that reality into something other or something better, you first have to face that reality for how bad it actually is, because otherwise you're not going to be able to change it. Like for example, XR's first like demand is to like tell the truth and act like the truth is real. And unless the climate movement, which is supposed to be like the forefront of that, actually does that and tell the truth on how bad it actually is and act in accordance with what that situation then demands, that situation is not going to change otherwise.
Acting as if the truth is real is the fact even that is something that you need to, that you need to remind, or that you need to pose.
But it is like, it is so easy to live in denial is in this day and age, because like the truth is so hurtful. So in order for you to constantly be in touch with that and see it for what it is, it takes a lot out of you to constantly face that.
And that's why you need community.
Yeah.
Because I know that I've noticed that I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
When I'm being asked to do it alone, like when there's a lockdown, I just end up smoking weed and watching Netflix, playing video games. I can't do this.
No.
And that makes me worried, because if I can't do it, who's gonna do it? Because I mean, I have all the time in the world. I've done the mushrooms and the whatever, and I've like, I'm not saying that that's the answer, but in fact, I'm saying that's not the answer, because I'm telling you, I still can't make it. I'm not capable of redirecting the course of the fucking world by myself in my own little pod here. It's called an apartment. I know why it's called an apartment, because it's keeping me apart from the ment. I'm not sure if that's the fundament or the ment. Anyway, we need to be together. We're not going to do it alone. No one's going to be able to do it alone. No. Which is why I worry about people splitting off and branching off into their own little realities. Because that's not the answer either. I love it. I understand it. Yeah. But I hope that they discover something that they feel like, okay, I learned that, but now I need to turn back because I need everybody. Yeah. We need everybody. And I don't mean we need everybody to go down this particular rabbit hole or that particular rabbit hole and then fight over which of the branches of split off realities is the one that needs to be chased. It's no, we need to come back to the center together. We need to come back, sit around the fire with each other and face the reality. But we share the tools and the things that we've learned on our wild goose chases of how do you deal with reality? How do you stay open to experience the full scope of the reality that you're living with? It's a real question.
It's a really good question.
Like, what is it? What gives you the courage to be present with what's real?
For me personally, it's the realization that I can either suffer it facing it head on now or suffer worse later. For me, that's like what's pushing me to see reality for what it is more and more. It's the realization that we're not going to escape from this by looking the other way. In fact, it's getting progressively worse if we continue sticking our heads in the sand. So we need to like directly confront it now. Otherwise, yeah, there's no turning back. And that's also like, sometimes I can just like be in this very like dark place where I'm just like, I wish I could just live a normal life and not be so up in my head about these issues and go around like most people seem to be doing and not worry too much about it. But then I'm just like, no, that's not my faith right now. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, there's a reason why I've woken up to this reality, and we need more people to wake up to this reality too. Otherwise, it's gonna get much worse. But it needs that, like, it's a constant process. It's not like a destination you arrive at. You need to keep digging and keep like going layers and layers deeper.
That's right. It's reminding me of DMT. That I've been avoiding it. Yeah, it feels like a shirking of the responsibility that I have. It's like, hey, you have an opportunity to look at this. Look at it. Like, I don't want to. I know. Leave me alone. It's gonna tell me that I should do yoga. I don't want to be told I should do yoga.
I want to Netflix and chill.
Yeah. Why can't I just Netflix and chill until everything sorts itself out?
Yeah. Someone else deal with this shit.
Yeah, because Netflix and chill is the void. But this can't all be. You can't all put this all on me. I'm not putting it all on you. I'm putting your piece on you. Yeah. You put yourself on it. Yeah. The more you put yourself on it, the more. Don't worry. Everything is a reflection. In a way, it does really start with you. You know, the better. If you want a better world, start with yourself. It really is like that. It does. It is true. Yeah. You just have to trust that if you do, everyone else will too. Yeah. Somehow, you will come together. We will come together. If you turn to reality, if you turn your full attention to the bright flames of reality, you won't be facing it alone. That's what faith is for me. Is to acknowledge that somewhere in your bones you know, even if you can't explain how you know, that when it gets down to it, if you have the courage to face reality when it's needed, you won't be there alone. There will be, everywhere around you will be people. And you can look them in the eye and recognize they are in this together with me. I'm not alone. We're, yeah. Then there's a transcendence in that of you become responsible. You become able to be motivated to beyond what you think you're capable of. Because you're there, because you feel supported, because you know that now it's now or never, we're in this together, you're able to give it all. Because you have your full attention on reality. In a way, your body keeps score. Your body and your being knows exactly if you're facing reality or if you're avoiding. And the degree to which you're avoiding, that is how much it keeps you from using your full potential. Because on some level we all understand that we're born here to face it together, and you can only give it everything when you are giving it everything. So if you feel like you haven't reached your full potential, it's because you haven't fully faced reality. You haven't found the right thing to give it your all into. Yeah, I don't want to half-ass my life. It's just I've found so few things that really invite me from inside, where I feel the pull, like a resonance of, yes, this is what I want to give everything I have to. Activism has been one of those things. And facing the scariest real, in a way, psychedelic journeys, especially when they're challenging, as also,
there's a growing potential there.
yeah, it's really helped me to see this thing that we're talking about now, to get some awareness of, or some ability to look at it in this way, is definitely from going there. And yeah, in a way, that is its own rabbit hole, and it is its own sort of like, it's its own thing. That is not the answer. You're not going to find, it's not like, oh, everybody should go down this rabbit hole. That's not it. It's one of the many ways to learn the needed skills and awareness and presence.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the thing, just presence and accepting yourself. Because everybody has a different perspective on what it is that's needed. It's like, oh, I'm not a farmer, I don't know how to grow food. Or, oh, I'm not a fighter, I don't know how to fucking protect people. Or, oh, I'm not a wizard, I don't know how to conjure dragons. Or whatever it is that you feel like you can't do but that you know is needed. That's fine. What you need to do.
Your thing.
Yeah. Learn to be present first. And in the situation, you will find exactly, with presence comes feeling, understanding, intuition, and you'll know. You'll do. You won't even need to, knowing is a side effect. You'll simply do. Yeah. It will be happening. It'll be happening. You will notice yourself in the process of unfolding whatever it is that you are here to give. I keep reminding that to myself as well. It's like, oh, I don't know how to contribute to the world. I try to find a way. It's like, if I don't know how to contribute, it's just because I'm not in the context where my abilities are addressed. And yeah, like going around and traveling. One of the reasons I actually wanted to go to Glasgow, to the COP in Glasgow. Of course, no, I know that the COP itself is a joke. But I wanted to be with the people and eat together and talk together, have these conversations. I wanted to go there to make podcasts, to hear people out and listen to the stories.
Yeah, it's really important. Because there is facing that reality, it is hard and it is tough, so we need that community in order to be able to face it most of the time. Because we can't do it alone.
We can't do it alone. In fact, we have to do it together. That's one thing I want to add before we wrap it up. Is that I'm learning from people going down other rabbit holes. I'm interested in what other people are discovering. And I also like the whole, doubling down on toxic masculinity and right-wing ideals. is also coming up with interesting and important things, funnily enough. You know, like the cliche of good times create weak men create bad times create strong men create good times cycle. And that we're coming from good times, or many of us are weak. And by weak I translate that as unable, unwilling to face reality. So bad times, things are rapidly turning into bad times. We're living bad times. Many of us have lived bad times, even though others have been living good times in the same time. But you see that the strong people are the ones who've had the bad time. So I'm trying to learn what I can while we still can, and find the strength in me rather than succumb. You know. So yeah, I see that. Yeah, I see that other people are at least aware of the severity of the situation, and they might not look in places where I would look for solutions. But I hope that when the time comes and I meet them again around the fire, maybe they're on the other side of the fire, but we're all facing the fire and we're all seeing each other across from it, that they will have interesting things to share, and that they will have strengths developed that I wasn't going to find, but that I will be able to rely upon when the moment comes, that I fully face reality, and so will they, that we're there together. I do believe that. I do believe that we have to do it all together.
That's the only.
That if the revolution comes, the only way the revolution comes is with everybody. Yeah. We're not going to have some kind of like left-wing, idealistically pure revolution. That is a fucking pipe dream, and it's serving the powers of separation and oppression in a way to keep to kind of put that demand. You know, it's like well, dig a little deeper if you're still there in your mindset. But I was there in my mindset. I was a fucking ideologue, and I was all about like that's not real communism or whatever, you know. But I'm learning quickly now, because the more I turn to reality, the faster like the
it's broadening.
Yeah, the more I'm exactly, it's broadening, because I'm
seeing more of the spectrum.
Yeah, the more real you get, the more you get open. It's like you gotta be open-minded. Yeah, I'm happy to talk with anybody who's open-minded.
And people that are not open-minded.
And people that are not, because everybody is open-minded in some way. Everybody's, you know, if you're having a conversation at all, your mind's open. Yeah. And maybe we don't have to agree. Because I don't really want to fully agree, because I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Like, it would be very boring and not very fruitful if you only talk to people that you totally agree with. Like, you would never challenge your own beliefs, and they would never challenge theirs. Yeah. It would just be like, yeah, merry-go-around without getting anywhere.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the rabbit hole again.
Yeah.
That's the trying to splinter off and create your own reality. You know, get your own little death cult going. You know, yeah. What do you think? I think we did it. I think we got into some stuff here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, usually, I have a good feeling, and that's usually when I feel like I've stood in my truth and said what I feel like needs to be said.
Yeah. Or maybe I feel a little bit of like, I don't know if that was exactly, but
No.
but maybe that's just a reminder that I'm still partly in the void.
Yeah, we don't have the
Yeah.
we don't have the answers.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Still
two
no.
of us aren't going to answer this either.
No.
But our perspective is our perspective, and I'm sure it'll figure into the greater scheme of things at some point. Yeah. So it's just an invitation to myself to be okay with where I am in my process, and to not have expectations, and just embrace myself where I am. Because that's another way of embracing reality. If you're unable to embrace reality in its entirety, it's because you haven't embraced yourself in your entirety. So, start with that.
Yes.
Love yourself even if you feel like, yeah, but I suck. Yeah, but I could do my best better. I don't do my best. I don't work hard enough. I'm not kind enough. I'm not empathetic enough. I'm too weak. You know, I don't have enough whatever. I don't have enough Bitcoin to be loved.
That's a fundamental criteria.
Yeah. It's like, no, it's okay. You just love yourself and start there. Yeah, you get to love yourself. Is that really the note I want to end on? You get to love yourself? Doesn't matter.
I think so.
Doesn't matter.
It's a good note. We're all imperfect, so
Your mileage may vary. Yeah, just see it in context. Like, wow, I never realized I felt so unworthy of love. It's like I'm doubting. I say, oh, you get to love yourself, and part of me is like, really? You fucking get to love yourself? Why? What did you do? What did you do? What did you do to deserve that? You know.
Yeah.
Like, and then part of me is like, what? Did I need to? Do I not just get to, like, am I being like? And I feel like the peer pressure of that, or like I feel like I'm getting sucked into this whole, again, this other sort of, the pipeline of, you know, it's another. Oh wow, like. And because that's not going to be resolved, it's just going to become a split in my personality. Part of me is going to stay with, yeah, I get to love myself. And part of me is going to stay with, no, you fucking don't. What? It's like, well, we're not going to solve that one on this particular episode. No. But stay tuned. Maybe another time.
Work in progress.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well. Hey, at least I'm acknowledging this discrepancy as reality, rather than avoiding it.
Yes. You're not running from it.
Okay.
Nice. Sun is shining for you too.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well.
Let's call that an end. Yeah.
That's a wrap.
Yeah. That's the wrap. That's a wrap. Thanks for indulging me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Albin, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as always.
Do you have like a book to plug or a SoundCloud?
Work in progress.
Yeah. Is there a way that you can like personally benefit from all the fives of exposure from all the like 3 people that'll listen to this?
No.
No desire for more Instagram followers or whatever.
No.
Excellent. Great. Well,
Take care.
take care. Yeah, and not just of yourself,
No.
but also of yourself.
Yes. Everything.
Whee!